Welcome to our second session of virtual MCUG and first session of WeHaveTalks. Uh, yeah, we have a new name and it's called WeHaveTalks. Uh, I think there's no need to explain why we have that name. And today our session is on understanding user experience and design. We have two speakers today, Ankita and Piyush. Uh, Ankita and Piyush have been working in this field for quite a while now, and they have some valuable experience which they would like to share with the people who are more new to this field or really don't know what all this is about. So this is a very nice introductory session made by them. So kudos to Piyush and Ankita for doing this. And yeah, let's get started.
Thanks a lot, Dave. That was a really nice and sweet introduction. So let's get started. Who is designing that app on your phone? So that's kind of a name which we think that really encapsulates what we're going to talk about. And it's going to, of course, tell us how user experience design kind of what are the processes which go into it, what is user experience design, and what do these teams which you see, it's a really new and developing field. So if you're working in some company, you would see these teams, UX teams, as they are called, working alongside you in your products. So you will get a glimpse of what their work really involves through this session. So what do I have for agenda today? We're going to start with a little introduction about me and Piyush. Then we're going to jump into what is UX design. And we do have a little case study to present, and then followed by talking about how the UX design processes translate to industry, and then an open Q&A session. We do have some resources to share as well, which if you're interested, they are really good resources to get started and know more about UX. So let's get ahead.
So, hi everyone. I'm Piyush. I am UX designer at OK Thanks Design, and we basically design products in human rights and internet freedom realm. Over to you, Ankita.
I'm Ankita, and I'm a UX researcher at Allied Solutions. And Allied Solutions is a fintech company, a financial technology firm, and it's quite an old company. And so we have a very new, fresh UX team, kind of redesigning a lot of these old financial softwares. So it's quite exciting to be there.
And what's really interesting about both of us is we both graduated with a bachelor's in computer science from Pune University, and then we worked for 2 years, and like that's when we found our love and passion for UX, the field of UX, and then we started looking for universities to apply to, and coincidentally we again came to the same university. We graduated from Indiana University Bloomington this May, so we both share like the same experience and kind of the similar journey, but you can see that we are in different positions inside of UX. But like that's that, and I know Ankita has like a very nice memory of us going through the journey, and like yeah, Ankita, go ahead. Like that is you can share that.
Yeah, I think this is like this memory has stuck with both of us for like a very long time, and it's really special because I believe that was kind of the first time we got to talk about UX, and so this happened during our graduation for undergrad. So we were in that big hall in MIT. And it's really crowded. There's there's a lot of noise, people are moving around, people are getting called on stage, and me and Piyush, we somehow ended up sitting next to each other, and we are completely engrossed in a conversation about design, user experience, HCI, all of these terms, which basically means everything UX, and we didn't care what was going on around us. We were totally engrossed in our own conversation, and it was so much fun to talk about it. I mean, we both still remember that, and ever since then, it's been a lot of those kind of discussions, and our friendship has just grown from there. And it's 2.5 years, actually, well, 4 years from that point, and here we
Yeah.
are with a master's in this field, which we had no idea about. And so it's been quite a journey. I'm really glad, and we got to share that together.
Yeah, it's funny that it has been 4 years to that moment, and like how much we have grown and like started loving this field, and now we want to share what we have learned about this. Um, so yeah, like let's begin. Um, yeah, I'll do it. Yes. So before we start with the next parts, we do have a ask me anything at the very end, but you can raise your questions on the Discord channel. Uh, and you can also ask it on the Zoom, but we'd also recommend that you can join the Discord channel because we will have more conversations like this there. We'll also share the video links that we create for these sessions on the Discord channel. It's a fun space that we are building, and we want to cultivate the community of where we share knowledge about different fields with each other. So make sure to check that out. I think someone will share that link in the chat as well for you to go there. Um, but okay, let's begin with the elephant in the room, or like the reason that we are in this session right now. What exactly is UX design? What does it mean? Um, I'll say let's start with an exercise. What all of you can do is maybe open your chat screen on Zoom itself, and I'm going to show you some images. And I want you to think, how do you feel looking at those images? Um, and like I'll just give you a couple of seconds. It's fine if you don't want to write anything, but it's okay. It will be a fun exercise to see what everyone's responses are. So let's go to the first one. Yeah, fun. Oh no, wait.
Sorry, I think that was me.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to try to go back.
Hmm.
I would let you do it. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, now it's working. But yeah, like I was reading the chat, and I guess Ankita, you're moving the screen.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust my.
Yeah, it's broken, I guess. But okay. But the gist was, I guess, people said fun and summer, and yeah, like the excitement of going down a slide, or maybe right now the longing to go on one because it's pandemic and everything's closed down. Um, like something more. Like let's look at the next one, like movies. Yeah, the relaxing feel of like grabbing your favorite food and binge watching these movies or TV shows. Avatar is like one of my favorite shows that I watched recently, and Mean Girls is like an interesting movie that I liked recently. And on the contrary, I am scared of horror movies, so it is something that I haven't watched yet. I'm scared of it, but yeah, I just wanted to put it because I am scared of it, and like I wanted to like share that. Okay, then what about next one? Our own devices and all the application that we have in it. um like you can see this Amazon and Mintra, and like the excitement of ordering something. Oh yes, huge credit card bills. Yes. The fear of maybe for defaulting because you have so much bills to pay maybe. But also like the excitement of ordering something new. I know iPhone was released like a couple of weeks ago, so some of you might be like looking forward to getting that. Or like something like Netflix where it's confusing, like you have so many options to select from, but then once you find a nice show, you really enjoy it and you have fun with it. So there was that. Um, why did I wanted to show these images to you, and why did I want you to go in chat and like share what your initial feelings were that for that? What is common in these examples, basically? Um, if we'll go back and like if we look at what we said in the chat, like how I was trying to describe these images, it was mostly about feelings and like how you emotionally react to it, and how do you perceive these images, right? And you might remember some of the experiences that you had when you thought of this, like your first water park ride, or yeah, like ordering a new phone, or the new clothes that you really wanted to buy. um I think we are getting to the point where I think you know what we are talking about and what is the crux of this session as well. We are talking about the experiences that we have with these things, and more specifically the user's experience, because we are the users, and these applications are creating an experience for us. What does experience mean is we basically interact with these products or apps, and they respond to this interaction and they give us something back, and whatever we get back from them, that is kind of we react to it. We might be happy to do that, or we might not be happy, but whatever that is an experience that you are having at that moment. It's said that like defining an experience during when you're having that experience is difficult, but you can go back and like think, oh yes, I had this amazing experience with this application or something. um, that's like a very simple way of explaining what experience means and what user experience means. um, we won't get in too much into detail about it. It is intentional that we wanted to keep it very open-ended and very broad right now, but wanted to give you a glimpse of what ux uh, means and can mean. um, but then I think what the bigger question that we want to like raise and like try to answer for you is, how are these user experiences crafted on the on Netflix or on the shopping apps that we saw? Who are creating these? So how these are created is by UX teams or user experience teams. What these user experience teams do is try to understand that experience, which is so difficult to define, and try to create interaction that are that can build that experience for our users. But when we think of user experience and UX designers, it feels like, okay, design, it's about the visual way of showing things, or making something look really good, or making it look pretty. Well, that's true, but also there's more to it. Um, Aesthetics do play a part in user experience. Good aesthetics mean good experience, but that's not a complete story. There are a lot of different pieces to it. We'll discuss about those pieces in the next slides. Uh, but to give you still like a very overarching answer is, the way we try to figure these pieces out is by using something called as user-centered design. So you must be wondering, okay, what does that mean? I think I'll hand it over to Ankita to explain that to you, because she has a really nice case study to explain as well. So yeah, like over to you, Ankita.
Thanks, Piyush, for that introduction to UX. And I am having some technical issues. So as you can see, I'm not having a good user experience with Google Slides right now. So just a second as I figure that out. So I have my chat open on the left and I can see Piyush on top. So I think, okay, this is better. Uh, okay, well, like Piyush mentioned that user experience teams are using something called user-centered design. So these experiences, they are being created for someone, for a user. So it's, of course, it becomes very important to understand this user, understand his pain points, his needs, his and her. By his, I mean just the person, and kind of bring that user to the center of what you're creating, what you're building. And so what you see in front of you is, it's called double diamond design process, and it's one of the many design processes followed by different teams across the globe. And so this process actually helps bring user into your process of building something, building that product. So take special note of how these diamonds are laid out, because that actually represents a very important flow in that design process, which is contraction and expansion and contraction. So the two arms of the diamond from left to right, as they are kind of going out, that represents expansion, and as they're kind of getting narrowed down again, that represents contraction. Now why is this important? So let's get into it. So the first diamond, which is in front of you, that is all about figuring out what domain you're working in, but more importantly, what problems you're trying to solve. So the first whole exercise is trying to understand what are the problems in this particular domain, who are the users, and what are their problems, what are their pain points, what are their highlights, like understanding who that user is. And there are different ways design teams do that. So you would hear terms like user research. So that is what kind of plays into this very heavily, where user experience teams will be doing a lot of extensive user research to understand their users. And as you expand and you come to that point where you have a lot of insights, you have a lot of data. And that is when you want to kind of start analyzing and synthesizing that data to generate meaningful insights which will then drive how you see that problem space, how you see your users. It will define that for you, that what exactly the problem is. So you take these insights and you kind of reach that crucial middle junction where you define your problem. Okay, so we understand that this is what we are trying to solve, and that actually helps everyone bring on the same page. And that problem is an encapsulation of all the biggest insights and the pain points you have seen your user face. So that problem definition actually becomes a springboard for your next expansion, where you generate a lot of ideas, you generate concepts, solutions, you brainstorm all of this, and you expand. So you have, depending on the problem, you might have 20 ideas, or you might have 100. And so that is that next expansion which happens, where you are generating a lot of ideas. And so as you kind of start expanding that, you reach that saturation point, and that is when you want to start kind of bringing back some of the business constraints, some of the technological constraints, and of course, very important, bring back your user at that point. Okay, which of these concepts make sense with all of these constraints we have? But more importantly, how are our users responding to it? And this is where we would do user testing. So user testing is basically you take that concept to your users and you see how are they using it, how are they reacting to it, is it actually solving the problem you defined in the first place? So it's a way to evaluate how good your concept is addressing that problem which you defined, which your users are indeed facing. And so, this is again very iterative. You would go out, you do user testing, you get feedback on your concept, you come back and you refine it, and you take it out again. So through these iterations, you finally reach a point where you're ready to deliver that solution, you're ready to launch that solution. And a very important point through all of this process is that as you have that solution, still you have not written a single line of code. And that's very powerful, because when you start developing it, as you are ready to launch the final solution out in the world, you can be sure that this is going to work, because you are addressing a real problem. You have tested that this solution is going to work to solve that problem. So that is the power of this, like just following the user-centered design process, is where the risk of failure is greatly reduced, because you're putting in all of that work before you put in that effort and those hours of all like actually developing that solution. So I'll take a pause here. So this is the theoretical side of it, as we would say it. So how does this process really applies to an actual UX project? So we have a little case study to present. And this is a project which I did in my master's. We took a course called Design Studio, and it was very open-ended course. We had all the freedom in the world to choose what we wanted to work in, like the design space, as we call it, or more commonly known as domain, different domains. So we decided to actually work in the domain of travel. And you would be right to think that, what do you mean? Like, what do you want to do in travel? Like, what do you want to design? And that is exactly where we started, that we didn't know what we wanted to do. And the best way to figure that out was to actually go out, talk to our users, talk to people who are traveling, which is almost everyone, and try to understand their journeys, their experiences, their problems, and their highlights. And what are the things they miss the most? What are the things they like the most? And we did exactly that. We started with some casual interviews with some of our users, and at this point, honestly, we didn't even know who our user was. So it was basically anyone who had traveled. We did that, and through that, we uh, actually understood that there's a lot of opportunity to design in the space of reliving travel memories. So that is something we heard our users say a lot, that, oh, this was like an amazing travel experience and I wish I can go back to it. So that emotive incident became really motivating for us to focus in that area of post travel experiences. And so this informed our next step. So remember that we are trying to expand, we are trying to understand this domain, we are trying to understand our users and their problems. But at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that we are trying to get to a more singular point of defining what we want to solve or what we want to design for. So as we are expanding, we are also slowly narrowing it down. So earlier we had that space of, oh, the whole travel as like a broad category. And then after that first round of research, we actually decided that we want to focus on only post travel experiences. And this informed our next activity, which is something we typically call exemplar collection. What it means is that we wanted to see what are the designs which are already built out there in the world to solve or to address some of the post-travel experiences we are looking at, to help people relive their memories. And this is a very common activity which designers will do, which you will see your design friends or your colleagues do, is collect inspiration, collect examples of designs which are already built, and kind of use them to kind of jump off into thinking about what you can do, where is that opportunity space. So that was our next activity, which again informed another level of insights for us. One of the big things was that both physical as well as digital solutions are applicable in this space. So we are looking at something more than just a phone app. We can be thinking about physical solutions. And so we have a lot of data. So we are kind of right in the middle of that process where we have done enough research. We feel like, oh, we have a good understanding of what this space really is, what this domain really has to offer, and where can we solve for. The next activity is something called affinity mapping, which we did to actually kind of help synthesize all of this research data into meaningful insights. So what do I mean by that? So as you can see, I have some images to share with you. This is affinity mapping and this is a very common image you will see designers with, that there's a whiteboard and there's like a bunch of colorful post-it notes on it. And this is almost ritualistic. This does happen a lot of times in all of the projects, and there's a good reason for it. So imagine that you have all of that data. You've done different interviews, you are looking at different design solutions, and how do you synthesize all of it? How do you make sense of all of that data? So this activity helps in externalizing that data. So all of those different data points which you have collected from different research methods, you want to bring all of that together in one place, and then you want to understand that what are the connections between these. So this activity does exactly that all of these little clusters you see, they are all the data points which kind of talk to each other, which are related to each other. So some of the themes kind of start emerging out of this activity. And so this is a very crucial activity. Affinity actually means that closeness or clustering of things together. And so as we did this activity, we generated a lot of insights, which informed our next steps, which is actually now we are in that process of narrowing down. We want to kind of come to one statement which we can address, one problem statement. So the next steps were to actually start thinking about, okay, we have all of these insights. What are our right now? What do we think? What ideas do we have? What design ideas do we have? And again, this is not the final solution. This is where we let our creative juices flow. This is where we brainstorm ideas, and we did that. We generated a bunch of ideas, and a lot of them were really out there. They were not supposed to be like, constrained through technology or anything like that. They were supposed to talk to people's desires, people's needs, and people's wants. So it didn't matter they were little out there, because at this point we actually took all of these ideas back to our users, and we wanted to design with them. So not just trying to go and understand the problems, come back and design a solution, actually bring them in solutioning with you. And it works wonders. We used a method called what if cards. So what this method involves is you take one of these crazy ideas you have out to your users and you say, what if this happened? And more often than not, your users are gonna either like go completely like, this is crazy, this can never happen, or they're gonna go like, oh, I love it, let's talk about it. And more often than not, they start designing with you. They will start generating ideas like, oh, what if like this was on top of that? And that is a very exciting thing to see when you kind of help them design for you and with you. And so that's what we did. What we heard, what our biggest takeaways from doing what if cards was that people do love to kind of relive those travel memories, but they also find it very inconvenient. And you see, like, we are already kind of getting to a problem statement here. And so to understand more about, like, get more quantitative understanding of how do people currently retrieve their memories, if they are thinking about their travel experiences, how are they retrieving those memories for themselves? And so we did a survey about that, and it was really interesting to know that it's a very big problem. Like, you think of an experience and you have to scroll through your gallery like literally months at a time to kind of get to that one photo you're really thinking about, or that one video you want to share with that friend who was involved with you in that memory. And it's really inconvenient. That's what we kept hearing even through that survey. So that kind of helped concretize that problem for us, and we finally narrowed down to that one definition we spoke to, which kind of encapsulated the biggest pain points we had seen with our users. And the problem statement went something like this: how might we improve the experience of retrieving digital memories in a quick yet meaningful manner? So yes, there's these experiences which people are having, and they are collecting memories, but it's not easy to retrieve these memories. So how can we do that in quick? But why meaningful? Because we don't, right now what is happening is they have to completely get out of their context of, say they're talking to a friend and they think of something, that to completely get out of that context to kind of find that memory. So how can we do it in a manner which is meaningful to our users? So this is where some of that experience comes into picture, like thinking about users' experience. And if we don't have that word there, we are not thinking about that. So that's why defining this problem very clearly, trying to encapsulate your biggest user pain points into that is very important. And so this are some photos from our ideation, brainstorming, concepting. There are a lot of different words you can use for that, but these these are some of the photos from that session. And you can see it looks gibberish. I can completely understand if you think that way, but there are around 6 to 7 concepts on that whiteboard right now, just through that collaborative session of working with the teammates. So I'm going to move on to the next phase. So like I said before, that problem definition really becomes a great springboard to start concepting specifically to address that problem. And at this point, we actually brought back one of the earlier what if concepts we had, and we brought that back into our concepting phase. And so that concept was actually retrieving digital memories through physical souvenirs. So along with everything else, we did notice that people collect souvenirs from not just their travel experiences, but also their life events, and they would keep them very close to them. They mean a lot. So you see that meaningful aspect is there. So what if we can use this to help retrieve those digital memories for them? So that became the crux of our concept. And so we are in that expansion phase, and we are looking at this concept, and we want to test it. Do our users really want this? Is this something they desire? Is this actually solving their problem of retrieving those memories quickly? Because to them, that's a bigger problem than experience. Experience, something we are thinking about. And how do you test something like this? How do you test a concept which is not built yet with your users? And how do you see how they're reacting to it? So it's a very common problem as you are trying to develop innovative solutions to problems. So designers and researchers, we face this problem a lot of times, and that is where we have to become very creative in how do we test some of these concepts which are not built yet. What do? Do we actually build a prototype, like a working prototype, which does this? When you touch something, it will pop up these photos for you. We can't, because it's going to take forever to do that, and we just have one semester to finish this project. But we still want to see what our users are doing, how are they reacting. So we did something called experience prototyping. Now, what does this mean? So our concept was that our users see these souvenirs they have, and they see those photos or those memories they associate with these souvenirs. On a baseline, that is what our concept was. So we did this, that we put really important souvenirs in front of our users. So these are the users we knew, and we kept like these 3 different souvenirs in front of them, and we asked them to touch any of them. And based on that, we actually pulled up photos on either a TV screen or a laptop to show them these memories they associated with this. So these are the people we knew. So this test was built out for specifically for that user. And it was amazing to see the reaction. There was a genuine happiness, there was genuine surprise in seeing, oh, wait, what? Where did you pull that from? And so that was the experience we wanted to build. That was the experience we wanted to capture and give our users. And so what do we do next? So that's where, like I said before, some of those constraints of technology kind of come into picture. So we actually at this point started looking at different technologies which are available to us, and we decided that we want to go with AR application. So we actually our final concept became something like an augmented reality app which helps retrieve digital memories through physical artifacts. So that became our final concept as we kind of tested that, and we had a video prototype. So again, what I mean by this is, so this is not actually developed, it's not actually built, but it still conveys that entire concept through how you will, like when you interact with this application, what you will feel and what are those interactions. This prototype conveys that to you. So this is a different fidelity for the prototype. So earlier we saw experience prototype, which was really low fidelity. We were just testing the concept. Here we have already tested the concept, and we are like, let's do this. But how do we convey that? We are not developers. We don't have that kind of talent in our team, in our small, I would say, student team. But we still want to tell people what we are building. So this is a video prototype. I'm going to play this for us. And So the first part of it is to actually scan that artifact, that physical souvenir you have. And as you can see, you have to scan it. You scan it from all the sides. And the next step, as you have scanned it, is to go in and find those photos which you associate with those. So this is done on the user side. So the next time you see that through the AR application, it actually retrieves those photos for you, all of those memories, and you can share the entire scanned artifact with your friends. You can share the memories with your friends or with whoever is involved. So that was our final kind of deliverable, final prototype, which we submitted as our final project submission. I know that was a lot, so I can give you all a second. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end in the Q&A session. Right. So, Piyush, you want to take over?
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Ankita, for that case design project. I remember when we was trying to select one, this was like something that I really liked, because like when you look at the last video, you're like, yeah, this should happen. Like, yeah, this is like, yes, of course, we need this. And oftentimes, like, that's the beauty of UX design, is that you go through all that rigorous process, and then when you come out with like one design proposal, it's like, yes, this is what we want, because it feels like this is something that actually connects with you. So Angita showed a really nice case study from our academic world. But like we both know, and like we know that academics is different from the industry. In academics, we are constrained by the limits of a semester, but also we are just free to do whatever we want. We don't have resources, or a company trying to like release a product or make profits out of it or anything. There's no boundaries to it. So how does this design process look in the industry? Well, let's do one thing. Let's imagine that we have a company, and we have a product, we have a software out there in the world. We don't know what that software does. Let's just assume that we have one. And let's just say that that software has 5 primary features. The blue squares are the primary features. And we have some customer base. This product software has already been built, and it's out there in the world. People are using it. People are loving it. So I guess we are also making money out of it. That's good. But one fine day, one of the users come to our customer service team and say that, hey, feature number 3, we don't like it. It's not working with our team at all. Maybe if you can do something about it, uh, it like please do, or else we might have to leave you because it's not working for us. That is confusing. Well, what should we do now? But they also come back and say, oh, by the way, we just saw this other software which is similar to yours, but their feature 3 is like really good. We really like using it. I saw it at my colleague's place team, and like we might want to move to that one now. And this is like, oh no, we might lose customers. And if this is one customer saying, one user saying this about our product, what about other people? Are they facing similar issues? We need to fix this somehow. So what do we do? Like, what can be the options here? Well, I'll suggest 2 options. There are multiple options, of course, but for the sake of simplicity and explaining this design process in the industry, let's stick to 2. So the first option is, we say, well, okay, the other software has a good feature 3. Let's just copy that green feature into our product, and we'll be good. Like, let's launch a new version and we're good to go. In a way, this kind of sounds like a design process that we talk to our users. That was the research. Then we got back from them that, okay, feature 3 is not working, and then we replicate feature 3 from other software and then release it. Well, I guess yes, but it's also, we are just scratching the surface of what a design process can be. So what can a design? So before I go to that, like dive deep into that, what happens with option one is the result is when we just copy a feature from the other product, it might not sit well with other features that we have, and we might have to redo all the other features so that everything works cohesively. And it's fine. Okay, maybe we figure that out and we release feature three, but we will not know why that feature three, why the users want this feature. So when we redesign or like develop new features around it or around the product, we won't know why we are doing or like what direction we are taking with this product. And if we don't know that, then like we are basically shooting blind, and that's not lucky because the third point says that it might work or it might fail. And do we want to spend 3 4 months developing this feature knowing that it might succeed or fail? I don't find that a good way of using our resources and our talented team. So what's the option number two? That's the option that I would prefer. Of course, it's related to design, so I will. But let's dive into it. So we know that our users said feature number three doesn't work, right? Well, let's go back to them. Like, let's discover what's wrong with feature number three. So you see the three gray users on the right side. We take our product to them and like conduct maybe some interviews with them, or do a what if card scenario, as Ankita told, and see what exactly do they feel about this feature and what's going wrong for them. Once like this will give us a lot of information, and like we are expanding and like researching here. And once we get that information, we try to narrow it down or frame it into exact rich insights that tell us what we can do next. And this is what we learn from like maybe doing affinity mapping or creating journey maps from the research information. Um, we see that in feature number three, part one, the red one, is something that they actually don't like. It doesn't work for their workflow. And actually, the fourth part is something that they really like, and that is like one of the reasons that they stuck with our product. But they, from our research, what we also found is like part two and three is something which we can improve. The users don't have any issues with it, but it seemed like it can make their lives even better, and that's what the research told us. So now we have this four thing that okay, let's focus on these four parts and let's improve it. What's next? We again expand by designing a lot, designing frequently and testing them. So from on the left, we have the four parts, and you see from left to right, the red one is slowly becoming green. Like in a way, it's like we are iterating, we are testing, and it's becoming better. The users are liking it, and we are doing this constantly with the users. Like maybe creating experiential product designs or doing Wizard of Oz testing or some other methods that which we have in our toolkit. Um, you can also see that some squares, like the orange and the pinkish one, those were the designs that not necessarily worked. Like maybe they were we were going the wrong way, but like we got feedback from that and we pivoted and worked and like made those features better. So I just showed you a process. Let's take a step back and see what that process looks like. So we identified where that our users came to us and they told us they have a problem with this feature three, number three. We identified that this is a feature problem. Then we went on to discover that, okay, what exactly is the problem with this thing? And is this really a problem? Is there something else that's going on? Once we do that, we try to frame it down that, okay, these are the four things that's wrong, and we want to work on that. Then we go and expand and like design, we iterate and we create different prototypes out of it. Maybe something made out of paper or just later on, maybe on a screen and just showing it to the users. And just a side note, remember when we talked about user experience design is not only about aesthetics. Well, design is the part where we try to make it look good and delightful. But now you can see that it's just a part of the whole process, and there's a lot of different blocks to it. So yeah, and like we design and then we test, and then we again design maybe, and then we test. And once we know that, okay, for sure, this is something that is definitely better than what we had before, we talk to the developers and say, hey, this is what we are thinking. What do you want to do with it? How can we make it happen? We work with them and then we launch the product. And you can like you can see that the circle goes back. Maybe after the launch, we find that there are some other issues in some other features, and we can make that user experience even better. Let's begin the process again. So what happens is now we have our software with a good part number one for feature three, but also part through two and three are better with the other software didn't have. And in a way, this is like surprising for the user as well. Like, wow, you not only made what you not only listened to us, but you made it even better. Like, we want to stick to you. So like you see, like, why does the industry go with option number two, or why do companies use user-centered design? Is when we develop these features by listening to our users and by talking to them, those are more thoughtful and they have a rationale and like research behind it. And these features can stand a test of time because the users like it. And since we test and iterate and we fail fast and then we build something on top of it, that also means that the risk of failure is reduced because we know that users can like it, and we just need to develop it and launch it to them. And then since we are building better products, you saw that our software became better than the other software. Well, this improves revenue in the long term because the users are more likely to continue with us. Well, they might even recommend it us to other teams, and that's good because we get more people using our product and we get more revenue in. So definitely option number two seems like the way to go. But then who does all these different parts of the process, you might ask? Um, these are some of the popular titles that you will see in the industry when you talk to a UX team or a design team. We mentioned that I am a UX designer, Ankita is a UX researcher. There are also these different titles that are thrown around in the industry, like product designer or UX strategist, UX architect, or chief design officer or director of product or design. The reason we wanted to show this screen to you is primarily if you know any of your colleagues or friends who have this title and who work in the UX team, maybe you can just go to them and talk to them like, hey, I had a session and I learned about something called double diamond. Can you tell me how do you use it, or what do you feel about it? Because I'm pretty sure that we showed you two design processes, the diamond and the iterative one. I'm pretty sure they'll have their own perspective about these processes. And in a way, that's what makes design really beautiful is everyone has their own perspective about things, their own opinions. And the goal is to combine those opinions together for the users and create something really nice for them. So yeah, like go ahead and talk to your fellow designers. Side note, we really do love to talk about design. So if you just hold us and like just ask us these questions, we might just ramble on and on about design because we love to do that. So yeah, that is how UX looks in the industry. Go ahead and reach out to people and like talk to us or talk to them definitely. Um, we also like do have some. We are at the end of the session, so we do have some UX resources on the next page. I'll say you can take a screenshot or just pick out your phone and like take a photo of the screen and you can read more about these stuff. There are some podcasts, there are some blog posts like UX Collective, UX Planet that we usually read articles on. It's like fun. There are also really good books that you can read about to get introduced to design and like just enjoy the content.
Yeah, this is these are all the, I mean, this list kind of includes what me and Piyush follow quite closely as well, and we do recommend it quite wholeheartedly. The books especially, I mean, even if you are not in the field of UX, but you are working in a product company or even a service-based company, they really help you think about, like, everyday things and things you're seeing in your company in quite a different way. So pretty cool. Yeah. All right. I think we can move on to the last part. Uh, we actually changed the order a little bit here. We first went through the resources, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to. I'm not doing this. Are you doing this, Piyush?
Oh, I am okay. You can take the control back. So I'll go to Discord and see if there are any questions.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have one question. And I think Ankita, you can answer this. How do you evaluate a UX project?
Right. So that's a tough one, and that's a tough one because it's a tough job. So like evaluating experiences, even when you are asking someone about their experience, it's really difficult to define. Like what Piyush was saying in the earlier part of this session is it very difficult for users to talk about their own experiences, and so when you are testing your design, it's really difficult to understand is it working really well, is this really solving their problems. I think that's the easier question to answer, but is it really giving them that experience which we intend for them to have. And there so there are workarounds, of course, like there are quantitative methods to kind of address this. Like, so you define metrics. One very common method is actually sending out usability tests. So you have an application, you have a software which you're developing, you send some of the flows to them, and you see how are they using that. So you can at least test for the performance of it. Is it solving that problem? And so that's the quantitative method you can use to evaluate. So if you're testing, say, with 50 participants, and it's like a usability test, if 80% of your participants can do that, 80% and above, it means like it's good enough. And that's another metric a lot of designs work on. Is it good enough for our users? So to move on to the next step. So that's the quantitative aspect. About qualitative, you want to do interviews, you want to like talk to your users one-on-one, and interviews is just one of the methods you can do. And so you talk to them, you try to understand what are they saying about your product. And well, I know this maybe is, I'm mixing industry and school here, but because I've moved into like working as a UX researcher, it's really difficult for me to only talk about my school project. And so those are some of the techniques we use. So things we hear them talk, we kind of bring back that to add that context to the quantitative data. So that's somewhere, that's the place where qualitative and quantitative kind of can go hand in hand and work to tell the user story, to tell the final story for your product. I hope that answers the question.
I do have something to add to like what you said,
Yeah.
because yes, it is like a tough thing to like quantify,
Right.
and like the way we see it is every new problem it has its own set of metrics. So like when like I we understand that for a company to succeed, it means that generating that revenue or having that click-through rates for your products. Um, then we have to think, okay, if we are creating an experience for them, what 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 are the measurable metrics like a click-through rate or the number of clicks they make, and how do we connect that back to the experience? And that is a very like crucial part of researching and testing, because we don't want to connect the wrong experience indicators to the wrong uh, metrics, because that might mean that we are thinking of it in the wrong way. We might design something better, yes, but we might be going in the wrong direction. And we have to be mindful that we don't create something that uh, creates a wrong perception of what the design should improve upon. So yeah, it is a tricky question to answer every time.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, it is a question that it's like fun to answer as well every time. I'd say. Um, so Ajinkya has a question, or Boo. Um, can you briefly describe how a UI UX designer collaborates with a software engineer on a product?
Piyush, you wanna take it or?
Yeah, yes. This is like a topic that is like really dear to me because I have been a software engineer before and I have worked with UX designers, and it is like there's a gap. Sometimes there's a gap between these two professionals. So it's like, yeah, okay, need to figure that out. So the way I'll say I work with a UX engineer is I want to bring them early on in the project, and I want to share with them what we are working on. So if we are researching about the product and we are not yet on the design or development phase, I want them to know that, hey, we are discovering these things about it, and we want to know what do you think, and like get their opinion as well. And the reason is, UX designers are not the people who create these solutions. UX designers are the people who bring people together to create those solutions. So that means bringing this engineer, the product manager, and the users on the table and like talking. All right, we have a problem. Let's figure it out. Because the software engineer might have a solution that I don't know because they have been in the depth of the product trying to solve, like develop it and like build it. So definitely I would like listen to them. And then after that there's like a back and forth, like, hey, I like your idea, can we do it this way? And then maybe the engineer say like, we can't do it right now because we have some restrictions on the resources. And then it's like, okay, let's think, like I still want to get it done, maybe we can plan for the next 1 year or something and make it happen. Is that possible? The engineer might say that, yeah, that we can do. Let's discuss it with the manager as well and like make a plan for it. Sure, like let's build that. So you see, like from the start, like trying to get in with the engineers and talking to them. That is like the way I like to work with engineers because it's more fun then.
Yeah, I have to say that I mean, being on research side, you are more closer to the users and what they're talking about, and that inadvertently makes it so that the designers are more closer to the development team. But recently, in my work at least, we are trying to kind of change that model a little bit. We are actually bringing our software engineer, like who's kind of the lead for other developers early on, even in the user research phase, where if I'm talking to I'm talking to like an SME, like a subject matter expert in a certain area. The developer is sitting on. If I'm talking to the users, and this is more of like an exploratory interview where we are trying to understand some, like we have heard that there are some problems, and we're trying to understand more about what exactly they mean when they say that this is a problem. So we have that developer sitting on in those calls as well. So it does a lot of things, right? Like it gives them a clear picture of why this is a problem and why do they need to solve it. But it also, what it does is they can start thinking about how can they make this, how can they solve it technologically. So a designer can tell you how to design for it and what kind of experience will that create. But not a lot of times designers will have that idea about how technologically feasible it is. We always have to have that discussion with the developer, and the sooner you can bring that in, the better your designs will be, and the faster time to market it's going to be, because you've identified that, oh, okay, this is not going to work. What are other three options which can work? So it's a pretty cool when different segments kind of come together and brainstorm about things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, we have two more questions right now, and I'll go with the first one that I see. And this is a very interesting one. I think both of us will like to talk about it for hours and hours. So Dave is asking, are there any ethics that user designers have to follow while making a product? And he said like it's a slight reference to the social dilemma documentary. But I think you have not seen that, but I know like you know about design ethics. So Yes.
I've heard so much talk around that.
It's a
And
good
what's
one.
the second question?
Like we can go to that one like later, because it's like let's answer this one and then move ahead, I think.
Because I think ethics conversation can go really deep and really long. So that's why I was like, if the other one is like easier to answer. Uh, I mean, you honestly, there's no right answer to this. Like, I think this is more of like a discussion we can have. Even you can like go on unmute and like we can just have a conversation about it. Um, well, this so I think that when you're designing new things, when you're designing solutions for people's problems, you have a lot of power. You know, when you say that I can create an experience for someone, you have a lot of power when you're doing that. uh, because one wrong placement of something or intentionally wrong placement of something and the experience is completely different. So it is a lot of responsibility. That is what we have been taught in our masters as well, that yes, you are in that position of power where you can decide what people are going to experience with your products, but that also means that you have to be very cognizant about what you're doing. So to give you a live example, okay, um, and you can jump in whenever, no problem at all.
Mhm.
So I'm working on a product currently. So what we are trying to solve is we have a customer support for in our company, and they get a ton of calls because people cannot figure out how to use our website. So like I said, this is a very old financial company, and so a lot of products are antiquated, and we are trying to like make them more user friendly, I would say. And so this website is like one of that. So we spend, like, I think yearly, like couple of $1 million in answering those phone calls, because each phone call costs us like 3 point something dollars. And then when you add that up, because the traffic to that website is like almost 40 to 50,000 people per month. So when you add those phone calls up, it's a lot of money which the company is spending in answering those phone calls when people can self-serve. Now we are redesigning that. We are in the process of redesigning that software, and we reached a point where we want to give people help options if they are getting stuck in that process when they are using that website. So we reached that point where how what at what level should they see that phone number, because they're going to pick up that call at some point if we give them that number. So should it be hidden or should it be visible? I mean, of course we never had that discussion, but it kind of came up in more subtle ways, like how that placement should be. And then we need to have that discussion with the business, that goal here is not to hide that number. Goal here is to make that website so easy to use that they don't have to call. You see that perspective shift here, that like that was an ethical decision we had to make. That if imagine the business is putting pressure on you that we want to remove that phone number altogether, we don't want to give users help they need, then it's our responsibility, it's our job to put down our foot and say that that's not what this is about. Let us guarantee that, let us make sure that that website works to a level where you don't feel the need to do that. So I mean, that's not what happened. Like, we didn't have that pressure or anything like that, but we definitely reached that point where should this number really go. So very interesting example. And again, the team needs to be very self-aware of their decisions because they are impacting users. And we see evidence of it. When I do research, I see evidence of how much of a difference it makes. Yeah. You to have anything?
Um, yeah, I'll try to make it really quick and succinct, because this is a very honestly, this is a very interesting topic to talk about. And like designers like now are getting more and more aware about the ethics of design. Because if you remember in the session, I said like connecting metrics to experience points, or like how experience is like connected to those metrics. And it becomes really important, because basically what we are doing is connecting delight to money. And if we connect the wrong things to money, that means we want to increase those things back, because that will increase our money as well.
Yeah.
And what that means is, if we want people, like let's say we want users to be on our website more. The more they are on our website, the more our money will increase. And that is how, like, frankly, that has what has happened until now, that we have come to a point where people are spending more time on their devices rather than their friends or family. And people are like, it's difficult to get rid of your phone. Like I have my phone right beside me right now, and if I get bored, I'll just pick it up and check it. um but like, that's a like that's the part of design that happens. It's difficult because the thing is, it's difficult to quantify what all things will happen with our design. It's not possible to see all the possible scenarios. What we have to do is like understand that things like this can happen. How can we reduce it, or how can we take actions to like not have these things happen? That's like what is design ethics called. um I think a lot of companies now are focusing on that, trying to get away from like just creating designs for delightful results, rather focusing on what does this design do in the long term, what are the ethical implications of it. um yeah, like I just wanted to make it very succinct, and yes, we can move to the next ones. So there are like two questions now. I just want to ask first one because it's like super quick. You have to
Okay.
answer it like probably in one word, I guess. How many cups of coffee a UI UXer consumes on a day-to-day basis?
I consume 2 cups, but I drink milk coffee, so there's hardly any coffee in it. It's more milk. I'm milk coffee
Yeah.
person.
Yes, I think it's two for me as well. But I also have some juice or tea, chai sometimes, because I
I think
want to
that
have
is
be
great.
creative and not be too focused. Like just have my mind go in crazy directions when I'm designing. um, so yes, coming back to Krishna's question, uh, Krishna asked that can you show or share any design or project that didn't go as you expected? Yeah, like I think one of us can answer that. Like, what do you think, Ankita?
Sure, I can take that. I think of my capstone when that question comes up. So we did like a 1 year long project in our last 2 semesters. So it kind of spanned across both the semesters, and it was a personal project, an individual project, and we typically call it capstone project in design world. And so uh, I was hell bent on like actually building a product, like a physical product for long distance family relationships. Clearly I still am in one. My family is not, I'm not living with my family anymore. So that was a felt personal pain point. And and so I was very like clear about, oh, I just want to build something. And what happened is, actually I didn't follow the process. I was like, I just want to build it. And that is where it, it really didn't go as I planned. So I took a step back. I had a great guide for that project. I took a step back and I actually went back in, and I started with research, to understand more about, are other people feeling the same pain points which I am? How are they perceiving this problem? And things like that. So no need to go into that. But the end product of that project actually became like 5 different concepts, which were fleshed out to a certain degree. So they were not completely formed, actual working prototypes, but they were like really good concepts, which were kind of tested in a way. So I started with something very different in my mind, but it ended up to be something completely different. So that's
Nice.
something which comes to my mind. You should have anything to which you remember.
Um, I mean, I think I'll say like I find that a lot of times designs, like whatever I have designed, they don't work as expected. Um, and they never do, I guess, because there's always some kind of internal my personal bias or like team's bias that builds into the design. And that happens. It's very difficult to remove that, because also like when you design, for sure not everyone will like that design. So things can turn, and you don't know what is going to happen. The only thing we can do is like try to reduce how many unexpected things are going to happen with it. So yeah, like short answer, like a lot of times, I guess.
I think the bias, what you spoke about bias, that's very interesting. And I think that is where, again, user testing becomes very important, is so that whatever bias the team has, the assumptions they are making when they're building something out, testing really helps like put focus on those assumptions, and you have to like rethink, oh, wait, this is what I was thinking. This is what I was assuming the users will understand, but they're not really, they don't really understand that in the same way we are designing it. So that's a whole conversation in itself.
Yes. So we have a couple of more questions. I actually want to like not skip on them, but I actually want to come to a later question, which I feel is like something different. Like now we are discussing about the industry, but Niharika is asking question about like studying UX. So maybe we can answer that and go back to other questions. Um, Niharika needs a little guidance because she is planning for masters, and like she found it's sehr interesting, so she wants to do it. So the question is like, can you please help me by sharing how exactly a master's program shapes these skills? I am your junior, tongue out, and she has 2 years of work experience, but it's not UI related.
Okay. That tongue out was really important, na, Piyush?
Yes, it was. It creates the experience, I guess.
Right, it does. Um, you want to take it? Should I take it?
I can. Yes, yes.
Oh,
Um, I think the biggest thing that master's program do is they help you change your perspective, or they help you change how you look at problems. Because I remember when I started out like as a software engineer, for me every problem had one solution, and achieving that solution was like the goal. And if we cannot do that, nothing else is working for me. So like it's like very logical that if this is false, like just make it true, and that is the right way to go. Um, but what master's program do is like they first tell you that there's no real solution to anything. Rather, you can only make sure things become better for the users, and that is something that we need to like embrace first and like go move ahead with it. Okay, let's design something. Let's try what is working for them and see. um the other things is it like master's programs also like make you realize that failing is not like failing at a design does not mean that you have failed the project, or that the project is not going to work. Like when Ankita told her story that something didn't go expected in her capstone, um like that is the nature of design, that things won't work as expected. The but like that, like you embrace that, like okay, it's not going to work, but I know I just need to take the lessons from it and make it better. That is what it's about. Iterating things, it's about putting things out there, seeing if it works, if it doesn't, taking it back and like improving on it. So it's about the journey rather than the final destination of making something go perfect. That's how I see like what I learned from masters. um, of course, like there are other things like understanding the visual aesthetics, or understanding how to research with, or how to talk to people, and what should you be mindful of when you are sharing things with people, or like learning about them, because it's their personal experiences you're learning. You learn to be more human and like more uh, empathetic towards others. uh, we I remember we did some projects where we were worked on food insecurity in Bloomington and Indianapolis, and it was a humbling experience because we went to food shelters and we saw these homeless people coming there to get food like for them and their family. And it was a humbling experience because it realized that we need to do something about it. Like I don't like we tried like it was, but the unfortunate thing was it was an academic project. But you see like where I'm kind of getting into the emotional aspect of it. But it makes us more humble that at the end whatever we are designing and developing, on the other end some person is gonna use it, some user who has their own family, has their own friends, and has their own life, which might get affected or get improved by our designs. So yeah, like that was a that was my response to it. Yes.
That's really well put. I would say really beautiful way of thinking about it. I share those feelings totally. I think that I look at masters as like a crucible. It changes you for better. Like at least that's what has happened with me, especially the way HCID has been designed, the professors there, just being in the presence of them and like just listening to them talk about design, but also things which design has like touches, like the social aspects of it, the political aspects of it. So design can be seen in all of these angles. So it's never just, oh, I'm designing something for someone. Like, there's always of these business aspects associated with social, political, economic aspects associated with it. And so it makes you think of all of those in terms of hard skills. Yes, you definitely learn um, how to research. Like I think especially with HCID program, which me and Piyush did from Indiana University, there was a lot of focus on research. But if your intention is to be more on the design side, you can totally pick up those skills, especially the softwares. I think those you can learn on yourself, like by yourself, and you will have like enough guidance. The skill is not to like necessarily just learn the software. You can do that by yourself. The skill is what and how to design using that software, and that is what is being taught in that course, in a master's, I would say. That how do you think about what a design should do, and what are the things you're including in it, what are the things you're thinking about. It honestly, if I have to like kind of summarize that, it's like it makes you more thoughtful about everything you're doing. Like it kind of hones in that impact you can have, what I was saying, like the power you have when you're designing something. And it that is what makes you more aware, self-aware, and more thoughtful, because you have a lot of responsibility associated with that power which is coming, exactly like Spider-Man.
Yes.
That was a reference which was like waiting to be said out.
To do as a design. Yes, that's right. Yeah, like just quick thing, like Niharika, if like you can also like start reading about design. So Ankita, if you can go to the previous where we have the resources,
Oh, yeah.
like you can read some of these things. Like you can read the blogs or listen to 99% Invisible,
Oh,
because
yeah.
uh, Roman Mars just talks about random things. Like I saw this podcast about traffic signals, and it has design in it, which was like really beautiful and like inspiring. uh like you can also read these books and stuff. It's just really good. Like you'll get introduced to design, how it works. So yeah, we can. Oh, Ankita, you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, feel free to reach out to us as well. If you have more questions. Akriti? Oh, okay. Uh,
So
yeah.
okay, we have I think two more questions that are in the chat.
So
So
yeah, let's try to wrap that up in like next 6 minutes.
yes. um I think I'll Okay, so I'll ask first Madhu's question, because that is kind of follow up to our previous discussions.
Okay.
The question is, do you consider project delivery timelines while designing? As in, say, design X is really cool and it's probably what we should build, but maybe the project timeline doesn't allow all the features. So, do you plan for design B for the MLP, or minimum lovable product? And do you also work on estimating how much time it would take for the developers to build the product? That's a nice question.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's an amazing question, Madhu. Thanks for asking that. And that is a real struggle, which all design teams across, I think, all industries go through. Uh, Definitely, like there are project timelines to be considered. There's compromises to be made in even how extensive the research can be, how cool the design can be. It's not always about solving the problem. At least in the industry, it's not always about what's the coolest thing or what's the best thing. It's about what's the best thing right now for this particular situation in this amount of time. So there's those added constraints, like we were saying before, and they definitely determine how long you can spend on something. and there's pushback, right? Like it's a conversation. Like no one is going to come and tell you that don't do this, because they understand the value of it. We have, like, they see the benefits it can reap when they are launching some product. So it's not like they're discarding it, but these are real timelines to be considered. These are real business, I would say, constraints to be considered. So it's always a conversation that sometimes the product manager has to put a clear deadline that no, we absolutely cannot go beyond this point. And so then we have to come back and adjust our timelines, the design team. And then sometimes it's a pushback from us that no, we absolutely need to understand this problem more before we try to design for it. And then that's like, okay, then if you need time, then okay, we need time. And then that's again a conversation to be had. So it's all about pushbacks, and it's all about like trying to work it out together.
Yeah, I actually was gonna say the same things. So like just like maybe I'm just reframing the same things, but yes, like the way like every designer feels is it's all about collaborating in the team. So like if the designer say like, hey, we need this cool thing in like 2 weeks, but the developer team cannot do it, like then like the designer is not forcing it to happen, but it's like a conversation like, hey, we think we need to do it in 2 weeks. And the developers can come back like, sorry, that's not possible in 2 weeks, we need more time for it. And then that's a conversation to be had, as Ankita was talking about. And like that is part of collaborating, like, okay, let's discuss like what is possible right now and what's not. um yes, sometimes things might get overlooked, but like if a designer is like not maybe missing the point that, oh, this is not possible right now, um they always like encourage others, telling that hey, you are missing it, let's talk, like what you are missing, I can help you with that or something. And a designer would be more than welcome to like, okay, let's set what I missed and what I'm going to learn right now.
Yeah.
um that's again comes back to collaborating and getting like bouncing off of each other's work.
Yeah, I have one quick thing to add to that. It's also very important to note that design is very iterative. So there's a lot of times there's that discussion that, okay, what is the minimum lovable? Instead of that, it's the minimum viable product which we can do right now, and what is for the next phase. So when we come back to redesigning some of these features, what are the things we want to do? So a lot of times it's about iteration, that okay, in this iteration let's do this, but in next let's refocus on this problem. So there's those things as well to be considered.
Yeah. And then we have, I think, the last question. Nivedita has asked, do you think UI UX principles or just design principles in general can be applied to non-tangible things like government policies or frameworks? Oh, before we answer that, I just wanted to like make a note that a lot of the questions have UI UX in it, and that is different from UX design, and it's like it's like about connotations to it. Like UI UX usually feels like, oh, it's about the user interface and making it look good, but like it reduces the importance of the research and like testing and understanding the users. So like yeah, like but I usually read it at UX because it's like, okay, I understand that these terms are thrown around in the industry, so sometimes they are mixed up. But yeah, okay. Maybe I'll just say the question again because uh, so like, do you think UI UX principles or design principles in general can be applied to non-tangible things like government policies or frameworks?
I want to say absolutely. That is what service design is all about. So Nivedita, service design, definitely look it up. I think you would be interested in it. It's not designing products. It's like it says, designing services, and it's basically taking into consideration not just the digital aspects but the non-digital aspects, and like what are the touch points. So what are the touch points between your users with your service, but also of different components which are involved in your service. So different departments which are going to touch this service. or which are going to be part of this, providing this service. So that is kind of what service design is. And so, government policy, I wouldn't say it's intangible actually. There's a final outcome there where you have that, you have a policy, and how can you take user into account when you're building something like that? I think it would just make it better if we actually try to do that. We actually, and it's like not just building that policy, but how can the user access and understand all of it? Even if government just does that, it would be so much better. But yeah, that's my shorter answer to that question.
It's like really interesting that the way we designed this slide deck as well was using design principles. We like the first thing we talked about is like, okay, who's going to attend this session and like what do they want to take away from it, and kind of based on that create the narrative for the slide deck. And then we iterated like, is this making sense, or are we saying the right things, or are we telling the right information? And like, yes, we had like probably 2 or 3 times more content for this, but then we wanted to like narrow it down. Okay, let's focus on the things that we can give right now, and like maybe it inspires you or maybe it informs you in some ways that you can take it up and like learn more about. So that was like intentionally making this like it was a designed experience or design session for you. But like coming to other things like government policies or like creating things for people, again, like it involves people, it involves humans. At the very end, they are going to interact with the policies or they're going to get affected by it. So it means it has to be intentional, or it has to be built in with some principles around it. By understanding the people and then coming to like what we should, how we should create this policy and like build it. So there are these like there are articles on Medium UX design, and there's a book by Eric Stortelman, one of our professors, The Design Way. It does talk about these things, like how design as a process is like rooted in like the basic nature of how humans work. So it's just trying to like extract that process and like show it to us that okay, this is how you can do things. So yes, definitely yes.
Awesome.
I think on a lighter note, Krishna asked, on a lighter note, what are your one-liner thought about new logo design from Google products?
Controversial. Uh, I don't like them. That's my feeling about it. I think it makes it really difficult to look at them because they're using so many primary colors together. It's a very I forget that word. Like you look at it and you feel what is it that you call it?
A cognitive load?
Yeah,
it's a higher cognitive load to
yeah.
understand what the shape is or the structure is.
There's that term. It starts from D. I don't remember. Yeah, but yeah, it puts a lot of that, and I think that I honestly liked the logos which were designed earlier. I don't know what was the motive to change it other than just like making them all look very similar. So yeah.
Yeah, I think like the logos are something where they focus too much on brand and consistency rather than human understanding of the logos and what those mean. Like that's my one-liner for it, I think.
Like look at it, like they all, I mean, I'm looking at all these, like, I don't think you can see my screen, but anyway.
No. But yeah, like I think that's all. Yes, it's all that we have. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope we gave you some things about design. It's a big field and I hope we could make it easier to understand. And definitely go ahead and meet your fellow designers and talk to them, because we love to talk about design stuff, as you can see from this session as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. And do remember do join the Discord server. And we are trying to grow a community of users there who are really passionate about the field they're working in, and they want to share their knowledge with everyone else. So that link should be in the Zoom chat, I think. I can send it again. Again, thanks a lot for joining us. See you around.